Good evening, UK Crime Book Club. I have Lesley McEvoy with me. I'm really excited because we just gabbed for England.
Yeah.
So show us Murder Mile. I know you. Have you got your new cover yet?
I've seen it, but I'm not allowed to show it yet because
Okay.
they're still tweaking one or two little things. So as soon as I can, I'll put the book cover with your permission.
With my permission, drop it in the group once you've got it.
I will put it on the group once I know. But this is the original cover of the Murder Mile. So yeah, and that's going to be changed. Well, it already has been, and within the next week or so, that should go live.
Wow, exciting stuff. I don't want to go too deep into anything for a couple of minutes to give everyone a chance to come and join us.
I hope there are people out there. What if it's just us? What if we're talking to ourselves?
If it's just us, it's fine.
Yeah, but we talk about different things when it's just us.
We do talk about different things when it's just us, but not with the camera on.
We might get into trouble if we think it's just us and there are other people in the room. I'll have a quick drink of tea. Yeah. I'm from Yorkshire and we live on tea. We need lots of tea.
So, just asking one of the admins.
I'll get into trouble now from all the Yorkshire folk who only drink coffee, won't I?
I've never known anyone from Yorkshire to drink coffee.
No, well, you're not true. I've got blood in my tea stream. I just have. If you cut me, I bleed tea. I just drink gallons of it. If ever there was a tea shortage, that'd be it. I mean, I can get through just about anything as long as I've got tea.
I drink a lot of tea. I've got to say, we have to have at work. I have a special lidded cup. You know, because I work with small children, we have to carry it with a cup with a lid.
I was going to say, why do you need a lid? Is it a bit like you can't be trusted with a proper cup?
Oh, I can't be trusted with a proper cup. No, not with a hot drink.
I'm always frightened I'm going to tip it all over my computer, right in the middle of a manuscript when I've not backed it up. You know, it's that nightmare.
I spill down myself all the time. I shouldn't say that on camera, but the kids tease me relentlessly. I do. I just lean forward and end up in
a puddle of tea.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, we've got somebody in the room.
So, and Kaz as well. I'm not sure who's arrived. I'm just going to have a quick look on my phone because we just got Facebook user. People need to press the button. Hello, Caroline Maston. She says hello, Sam and Lesley. So, where do we begin? Because let's talk about Joe first. Let's talk about book one.
Right.
And then I'll see if you can tell me anything about
book. Do you want me to explain why the cover's changing as well?
I want all the exciting news and I want everything.
Okay. Originally the Murder Mile here was published by Bloodhound Books, and this was their cover. Mm-hmm. Which I loved. I do like it, I have to say. And then I got signed to a 3-book deal. The negotiations were going on for quite a long time, so there was a lot of toing and froing, and I couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
And until it was all finalised, but it went on more or less all through last year. So it was really, and people kept saying to me, "When's book two? When's book two?" And I couldn't say anything because I didn't know who was going to take it, if anybody, and when it was going to be out. And in the end, I got signed to a 3-book deal by Zaffa, which is an imprint of Bonnier Books. And they print, Zaffa is the crime and adult imprint. So they have people like Linda LaPlante and Wilbur Smith. So I'm in quite good company there. I'm the baby in the house, obviously. But, you know, with some real good people there. And so when they took over, they wanted Joe Macready, and they're billing it very flatteringly as the Joe Macready crime series, which is very exciting because I love Jo and I don't want to leave her. And there was a time when I thought if I move publishers, I might have to leave Jo behind and I might have to come up with somebody else. But they say write what you know, and I'm not a cop, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a behavioural profiler and a behavioural analyst, and that's kind of what I know. And I thought, and that's Jo Macready to me. She's my forensic profiler, and I didn't really want to leave her behind. So thankfully, she's got a new home with Zaffa at Bonnier Books, and when they took book 1 on, which is The Murder Mile, they have to change the cover because obviously that cover is owned and was created by another publisher. So to rebrand everything and make it all look consistent, it's getting a new makeover. I've just done a small edit on it because they wanted a few little bits at re-editing. So that's just been done last week. And that was my bank holiday Monday. I spent doing that, finishing that off. And they've designed a fabulous book cover that I'm really, really chuffed about. And I was hoping I could show you it tonight, but I'll put it on the group. They're just tweaking 1 or 2 little bits. And then because they want the series to have a kind of look to it, so that the book covers are consistent. So if you go on Amazon at the moment, you can get The Murder Mile on Kindle. But if you click on paperback, it says it's sold out, which I wish. But actually, it's because Amazon are holding off until the new book cover, and then they'll print paperbacks. So that's the story with that.
Though. It's actually we've got Donna Moffat and Lesley Lloyd. So they're saying hello.
Hello, Donna and Lesley. Another Lesley. All the best people are called Lesley.
We've got I'm just going to have a look. It's Donna that said, Donna and Lesley Lloyd, your unofficial stalkers.
I do write about a stalker in book 2. You never know. You might pop in there, get some tips.
I'm terrified that you're profiling me. You'd have a field day.
I profile everybody. One of my party tricks, when I was at Harrogate, I don't know if any of your lovely book club members can attend Harrogate Festival, which is running again this year. Hooray. But when I was at Harrogate, word got around that my party trick is to be able to profile somebody in the first 15 seconds of meeting them. And that's not a deep profile, don't get too carried away. It's just what we call leading edge behaviors. So you get an idea of somebody's leading edge behaviors in the first 15 seconds, which sometimes is before they've spoken. So I ended up with this queue of people in Harrogate who just walk up to me and stand in front of me and go, and they wouldn't say anything, and I was expected to come up with something useful. So that was
Oh my word! I am I'll just go, shall I?
No, it's all good. I won't tell the bad bits.
I'm just laughing because I'm such an open book. Lesley Lloyd always says to me, I've got the most emotive face. You can always tell exactly what I'm thinking.
Don't play
can't hide it.
Oh, Facebook user. Hi, Lesley. I don't know who that is, but hi.
Scrolling on my phone to find out, but we've got Kaz wants to know, how did you get involved with Graham and Kate? So obviously that's, for anyone who doesn't know, it's Graham Bartlett and it's Kate Bendelow. So how do you all know each other?
From Harrogate. I'd been attending Harrogate as a wannabe, with my nose pressed up against the glass, wanting to be a writer. And I went to I think it was about 2017 or 2017 or 18. I went to the Thursday, Creative Thursday sessions, and Kate and Graham were running the crime scene scenario that they do, which was the whole day, which was fabulous. And because before that, they'd always done the Creative Thursday, had always been different sessions in different rooms for a couple of hours here and there. This was a whole day. Wow. And they set up the ballroom as a crime scene. And Kate came in the scene suit with a camera and everything, and she worked the scene as she would do as a CSI. And then Graham came in and they role played how it would work in reality. And I was an agog member of the audience. And then afterwards, we were in the very infamous beer tent, and I was chatting to them, and they asked me what I did, and I told them what I did. So we discussed how a profiler would have approached the scene that they approached from the angle of a CSI or a cop, and that's how it began. And so there we go.
So together, doesn't it?
Part of the gang, yeah.
Not a bad gang to be a part of.
It's not. I learn something new all the time with these guys. They're brilliant. Highly recommend their services.
I was just going to say, while we're on the subject of Graham and Kate, I've just read a fantastic arc of Definitely Dead, which is Kate's debut fiction.
I'm 40% into it. She sent it to me, and because I was doing the edits on the Murder Mile, I had it sitting there, and I couldn't get to it until I'd finished. So I'm on my way with it now.
We'll have a chat about it once you've read it.
It's not for the faint-hearted.
It's not for the faint-hearted.
She's very descriptive, is our Kate.
I love Kate. I said to her, you're hilarious, but this is grim.
Mind you, what she deals with is not exactly a bed of roses, is it? So
no,
it's very realistic.
It really is. I'll tell you afterwards what I said. In fact, once she's read it, I'll tell you what I said to her. But oh my word, what a book that is. Joe Noble, it was, that said hi, Lesley.
Oh, hello, Joe. I know Joe.
Donna says, I've no bad bits, not possible.
No, you haven't. You haven't actually, no. Apart from the fact that you're probably a bit too trusting, I reckon.
Probably.
Because you're too nice.
I don't think you can be too nice. I don't know. I probably am. But it only goes so far. Once, everybody gets a fair...
there's a tipping point. Yeah, I won't really want to be around when that's reached. But there you go.
It's very rarely reached. It's very rare. Kaz wants to know the topics you wouldn't write about.
I've been asked this before, and
you'll be asked it again.
Probably.
Your staples.
I think in my work, there's not a lot I haven't dealt with. So in my work, I mean, I've trolled through the sludge of some real broken psyches.
Yeah.
And it's the psychic and mental equivalent of what Kate does. Whereas she gets the gory, grim bits physically, I see the gory and grim bits of a person's mind. And I've dealt with some real evil people in my time. So there's nothing I don't think there's anything I haven't heard. Because I had a private therapy practice, because I'm a psychotherapist as well. And I used to run a private therapy practice, which I don't very much now because I write full time. But people used to sit in my therapy practice and say, I don't know how to tell you this because you're going to be really shocked. And I used to say, there's really nothing you can shock me with. There's nothing I haven't heard. When it comes to writing it, though, I think I wouldn't write about paedophilia as a subject. I wouldn't, because I don't like reading it.
Yeah.
I've sat with paedophiles. I've spoken to them. I've had a glimpse of how their mind and their world works, and it's not pleasant, as I'm sure you can imagine. But I think when you write it, you live with a book for quite a long time. Especially now with a big publisher like Zaffa, it can take 2 years from finishing a manuscript to seeing it out in the world.
Yeah.
And for that 2 years, you live with that because you're doing edits and re-edits and you're reworking it. And I don't want to eat, sleep and drink paedophilia. No. So I think that's a hard boundary for me. I wouldn't write it. And it's not something I like to read either. So.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We've got... Kaz wants me to ask you whether you would ever consider a graphic novel version of one of your books.
A graphic novel version? What do we mean by a graphic novel version?
I'm going to get told off for saying comic.
Oh, I know.
But
would I ever consider it? Well, somebody else would have to do it because it's not my skill set. I don't know. You'd have to speak to my agent. Look, I've got an agent now and everything. Get me. I'd have to put you onto my agent. My people would have to speak to your people.
I like that. Going places up there in the world. I'm sorry to everyone that I'm wriggling. I have hurt my back again, and I'm very wriggly, and I might need to stand up at some point or kneel down or something. But so sorry that I'm twitchy. It's driving me a bit bonkers. Lesley Lloyd says, sounds like Kate's book's her kind of book, and she needs to read The Murder Mile too. She does need to read the Murder
Yes, you
Mile.
do need to read the Murder Mile. You do need to do that. Actually, Kate and I had an interesting conversation because my character is Joe Macready, the forensic psychologist in the books. And obviously Kate's character is Maya. Is it Maya or Maya?
Maya Barton.
Maya Barton, and she's a CSI. And we actually had a conversation before Kate got a publishing deal, and we said, wouldn't it be interesting if in one of our books, Joe and Maya spoke to each other? Now, I don't know if that's ever been done across characters of different authors, but, you know, a quick phone call to Maya, because I ring Kate if I want to know about, we've had conversations about strangulation and body disposal and, you know, all the usual topics you have. And I ring her and I said, wouldn't it be interesting if I know. I said, wouldn't it be interesting if Joe rang Maya and asked for her, or vice versa? So you never know. That might happen.
I'd love to see that. I would love to see that.
But yes, you do need to read the Murder Mile. And somebody's asked a question that I've noticed about, is there a book 2? Obviously, it's a 3-book deal. Book 2 was finished last year. And that was the one that Zaffa optioned. And then it was a case of, you know, could we do a 3-book deal, and could that include the Murder Mile? And book 2, what I can announce here is for book 2, they're splitting the Kindle version and the paperback. They're treating them as 2 different publication days. So I'm going to get 2 launches, which means 2 bottles of Prosecco on different days, obviously. And the people who have Kindle will get book 2 first. So they're planning on launching book 2, which I can also officially announce is called The Killing Song. And that's coming out on ebook on the 25th of November this year. So if you've got a Kindle, you'll get that first, and they'll be announcing pre-order dates and things. And then the paperback version will come out in June, the 2nd of June next year. And that's going to be released into retail, which is one of the reasons I made the move to the new publisher, is because I wanted to see my book on a bookshelf. I think all the time I've been writing, which is just about all my life, in my head, I would have felt like a proper author when I saw my book in a shop or on a bookshelf in a railway station or an airport. And this deal gives me that. And they're going to launch it first on the 2nd of June into Asda. There's me with the high life, right? Asda. So, but I'm really chuffed because it means a lot more people are going to get to see it.
Huge.
I think a lot of people now buy their books like that. You know, a lot of people don't always get a chance to get into the high street, especially lately with what we've had with the pandemic.
Yeah.
A lot of the high street bookshops have had to be closed, but the supermarkets are still open, although books might not have been classed as essential. Who can't class books as essential? But so the Murder Mile is going.
Who came up with that, is it?
No, it's not. Everybody never was a more essential time for a book than during lockdown.
Yeah.
I think we'd have all gone slightly mad if we hadn't been able to escape into a book. But the Murder Mile is going into Asda on the 30th of December. So that's the first time the Murder Mile will have been on a bookshelf. And then ebook of The Killing Song, 25th of November. And then that will get released in the summer next year into retail. And then on the 15th of December next year, which sounds a long way away, but I suppose a year's gone pretty quick lately. Book 3 will go into Kindle and retail simultaneously on the 15th of December. So that's the plan.
So I'll be getting myself to Asda at the end of this year.
I'll go around every Asda. I'll be haunting Asda's. I'll be bringing the book to the front of all the bookshelves and photographing myself going, look, this is my book.
You have to stand there and go, look, buy it. I'll sign it for you.
Yeah, I wrote that. That's mine. They'll think I'm some nutter. Security will be escorting me out of the building, won't they?
You need to make sure your picture's going to be on the inside somewhere.
I know. Otherwise, nobody will believe me, will they?
Well, they will, but it's easier to prove it if your face is on it.
Do you know my dream, and it's not happened yet because it's not, well, it just hasn't happened yet, is to be swimming in a pool somewhere hot abroad on holiday. I mean, that's the dream anyway at the minute, isn't it, for most of us? And to see somebody on a sunbed reading one of my books, I can't imagine what that must feel like. And then it's, would you dare sort of swim up and go, I wrote that. I think I'd actually say, do you like that? Is it any good? And if they go, no, it's rubbish, I'd just swim the other way.
I don't think that's possible, but my dream is to be that person sat on the sun lounger, although I don't like the sun. But I'll sit at the side.
No, I'm a bit of a shade. I'm a bit of a shade bather. They call me the shade bather. I have to have a brolly because my family are Irish. We don't have the skin, we don't have the skin for sitting out in the sun. I've got pale skin and freckles.
I sit under a parasol in the back garden in Manchester, so
yeah, so do I.
Somewhere actually sunny. Nope. I've bought a hat to wear when I'm on playground duty at school, and my youngest daughter's mortified. She hates it. I've not actually worn it yet.
I have to take a picture and put it on the group so we can see your new hat.
It's just a baseball cap. I've got it in front of me. I'm not putting it on, just in case she's right and I look like a waller. John has asked a really good question. Did you always want to work in psychotherapy or with issues of the mind? And you've already answered, did you always want to write because you've always written? But
the psychotherapy thing, no, it came about, but I fell into it. When I was at school, and I go back into the mists of time when I was at school, dinosaurs were roaming and the earth was cooling. And it was never an option for the careers advisor. Nobody ever came into the careers advice and said, who wants to be a psychotherapist? It just didn't exist. So I had what my mum and dad called proper jobs at first. And then I was a trainer. I was a corporate trainer, and I used to train personal development, customer services. It was all attitudinal and behavioural stuff. So it was the soft skills, which are actually the harder skills. And that got me interested in what makes people tick. Why does one situation wind somebody up and not another person? And throughout my career, I was very fortunate that I worked with companies in the early days who would pay for me to go on courses and to get qualifications. And in the 80s, NLP became quite a thing. Neuro-linguistic programming, for those who don't know what that is. And in the corporate world, it became, especially in sales environments, they wanted to use NLP because it was about how to speak somebody's language, build rapport quicker with a person. So if you're either in customer services or you're selling something, that's obviously an advantage. So I did that, and that touched on some of the issues in psychology. It is psychology based, obviously.
Yeah.
And it started with that, and then while I was working, I studied in my own time and went to night school and went to Bradford and Calderdale College, and I qualified as a psychotherapist, a hypnotherapist. I was obviously an NLP practitioner as well, and that's how it began. So no, I kind of fell into it. I didn't really get qualified until I was in my 30s. Wow. And then it went from there. And then I qualified as a behavioural analyst and a profiler, and that's when the fun stuff really started.
Kaz has asked, is Lesley another one who's going to be part of Sam's Manchester Massive? So yeah, we're going to go for food and drinks, aren't we, at some point in the future?
Yeah, we don't drink a lot, obviously, but
obviously not now.
Obviously not. It'd be rude not to.
It'd be rude not to have a small something.
Yeah, a cheeky gin.
Kaz thinks I'm ignoring a comment about her being. She's written, Sam's ignoring my she's bossy comment, but she knows I think she's lovely as well. I wasn't ignoring it. I've just been scrolling up and down and I keep missing bits. Apparently I'm bossy. I should see the messages that I put on the calendar. I'm not. I'm just winding her up, telling her to stop booking extra people. Stop it.
Somebody's asked a comment that I have seen that says, am I going to Harrogate? Yes, I am. I have my ticket. Every year that I go, I roll my ticket over. I book then for the following year. So in 2019, I'd already booked for 2020, and then obviously it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I rolled it over to this year. And it's a very important year. It was going to be a very important year last year.
Yeah.
Because Ian Rankin is chairing, or was chairing last year, and it's his agent that signed me last year. So I really wanted to go when Ian was chairing it, and as far as I know, he is chairing this one. So it's all just rolled over. So yes, I'm going to be there with bells on. So anybody come up and say hello. You'll probably find me in the beer tent. I won't be drinking, obviously. I just sit there because it's a sociable place.
Somebody said supermarket books are lethal, jump into trolleys all the time, an issue countrywide I've seen.
Yeah, they do. They jump into my trolley as well. And Amazon, I mean, during lockdown, when
books this year,
I've spent a fortune.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get them past my accountant. Now that I'm a writer, I keep saying, can I write the books off as a business tool? Because I need to read, obviously, for the job. I'm not sure she's convinced, but I'll keep trying.
I'll second that. I think
it's a tool of the trade. You have to have them. You've got to stay abreast of what's out there.
So, Killing Song.
The Killing Song.
What can you tell us?
Well, for all three books, what I can tell you is, when I wrote The Murder Mile, I created a fictional town of Fordley, which is set in Yorkshire. I'm obviously from Yorkshire. I live on the wrong side of the Pennines now, but my heart and my family and my friends are all still in Yorkshire. So I'm a Yorkshire girl, and I really wanted, and I'm really proud of my roots, and I love the county. And I was born in Bradford, which, you know, some people don't like to admit that, and they say, oh, I live near Leeds. You know, they don't like to say Bradford because it's, in some circles, it's famous for all the wrong reasons. But I came from Bradford, and I wanted to set the books squarely in Yorkshire. And all three books, including The Killing Song, are set there. But because I don't live there now, I think it's you're on sticky ground. And a lot of writers do set their books in a real town. Amit Dand, he obviously has his books in Bradford. Liz Mystery, she sets hers in Bradford, a lot of hers. And that's great if you can stay on top of it. But things change, you know, streets change and buildings get demolished, and readers are onto you straight away if something's wrong. And it can take 2 years for a book to come out. So in that time, it can date things. So I wanted to create a fictional town because I thought if I create my own town, I can do what I like with it. Nobody can tell me that street's a one-way street or whatever. So I created Fordley, and it's Bradford. So instead of Bradley, I could have had Bradley, but I think that's been done. So I went for Fordley. The Killing Song is also set in Fordley. So Jo Macready lives in Yorkshire. She has a lovely farmhouse up on the Yorkshire moors in the middle of nowhere, which lends itself to quite a bit of drama as well, because she's a bit isolated up there, and very Wuthering Heights sort of countryside. And so, but the main town, the nearest town, is Fordley. It's West Yorkshire Police. So I talk about West Yorkshire Police Force, and she works as a freelancer with them. The Killing Song follows on from where The Murder Mile ends. So The Murder Mile ends, I won't give any spoilers, but book 2, The Killing Song, picks up 6 months after the end of The Murder Mile. So we find out what's happened to her. We find out what's happened to the other protagonist, which is Detective Chief Inspector Callum Ferguson. And Callum and Jo have a little bit of a will they, won't they, on-off thing going. So it picks up what's happening with them. And it opens with the killing of the murder, a cold case file of a young artist who was killed several years before, but the family never accepted the verdict of accidental death. And they ask Jo to have another look at it. And because she's a freelancer, they pay her as a consultant to take another look at the case. And she comes to the conclusion that it's murder. And she then has to convince Callum, whose case it was originally.
Ooh,
so it doesn't go down very well that she tells him she thinks he got it wrong. And that starts off The Killing Song.
That is such a mean thing to do to them.
Well, when you've got these on-off relationships, I don't think you can ever have a clear-cut happy ever after. Some writers do it and pull it off, but I think it would lose something in translation if they lived together and they were in domestic bliss and they were just arguing about, you know, him leaving wet towels on the floor or, you know, her washing his socks. It wouldn't quite be the same. So I think we've got to keep that freeze ongoing for a while.
Kaz is saying don't get started on Amazon orders. About another book yesterday. Yeah, buy loads. Tony Millington says Ian Rankin is chairing this year. Hi, Tony.
Brilliant. Well, I thought he was. I thought if I say it with certainty and then it's wrong, I'll be in trouble. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he is. So.
And you've met Ian?
Yes. Well, I met him at the 2018 one or the 2019 one, and no, it was the 2019 one because the Murder Mile had just come out, and I was introduced to him. And I'd always seen him as a wannabe when I'd been to the Harrogate festivals before. You know, I was a groupie.
Yeah.
And then somebody introduced me and said, "Oh, Leslie's written this great book, The Murder Mile," which was very nice. And we did a swap. He gave me a copy of his latest book that he was promoting at the time, and I gave him a copy of The Murder Mile, and we signed each other's books. And I kind of forgot about it. And several months later, I got a tweet from Ian Rankin, and I thought, this is a wind up. Somebody's winding me up. And he said, "I've just read it. I absolutely love it, blah, blah, blah." And he said, "Have you got anything else in the pipeline? And have you got an agent?" And my God. So we had this conversation, and he introduced me to his agent, and that's how we ended up where we are now. So I owe him a lot. I owe him a drink in that beer tent in Harrogate.
At the very least, a drink, yeah.
At the very least, I do owe him a cheeky pint, I think.
I think you do, yeah. David Gilchrist says, "Hi, guys." Kaz says, "I always find that interesting because people still work out where it is. Kate Ellis writes a series in Queensware and Tradmouth, which is really Kingsware and Dartmouth, and still mostly real places with a bit of artistic license. So is there anywhere real? Is there anything that's real that is based on somewhere?"
Yes. So Fordley is Bradford. So it's where Bradford is, if you know what I mean. And so I talk about Keighley. Anybody that's from that neck of the woods will know what I'm talking about. Joe, I used to live near Queensbury, which is one of the very high moorland villages up there. And Joe lives in Kingsbury. So it's a bit like Caroline's saying there about changing the names a little bit. So instead of Queensbury, it's Kingsbury. And but I do talk about Shipley and Keighley, and I talk about Haworth quite a lot because Haworth has got a very special place in my heart, it being the home of the Brontes. Yeah. And I've since bought a little cottage there, so which I rent out actually as a bit. If anybody wants a writing retreat, it's perfect for that. But I've got so because I'm over in Cheshire, I can't be in it all the time. So I don't want it to feel lonely. It likes to have people around it. But it was built when the Brontes actually were in Haworth. It was built in 1840. So and it backs onto the schoolhouse. So when the Brontes were there, they would have been able to see my little cottage. And so I mention Haworth, and I mention it a lot in the Killing Song. It plays quite a pivotal point in the Killing Song. And in the Murder Mile, I have one line where I mention a character who becomes quite central in the Killing Song. So I mentioned that Jo had a mentor called Jeff Perrott, who was her lecturer in psychology and her teacher at university. And he lives in Haworth. And in the Killing Song, in book 2, he becomes really central. And in book 3, he's even more central. So it's funny how sometimes just one line and that character sits in the back of your mind. But they wake me up in the night. You know, people think I'm a bit bonkers, really, because I'll say to my partner, "I didn't sleep very well." This Jeff Perrott sort of nudged his way to the front and said, "Excuse me, you know, I want a bit better part in the next book." And they talk to me and they won't let me go. So in the end, I have to put them in there. So Haworth is quite central to it. And I talk about Leeds and I talk about Manchester. So yeah, there are real places.
So Kaz is Leeds and I'm Manchester. So that's quite nice. Kaz says she lives near Bradford. It's a great city. I won't say exactly where she lives because I don't know that she wants that putting out into the world.
I'm just going to move my computer because The light is coming through the window at a very odd angle, and I think I'm getting a glare. So I'll move. Sorry.
It's all right.
Did the earth move? There you go. That's better. It was getting in my eyes, so I thought it's probably not great.
And David says that he quite likes Bradford.
Great curries, and actually in Fordley, I've pinched a curry house in the Killing Song, which is actually in Bradford, and I've plunked it in Fordley. So anybody who knows the area, read that and know exactly where it is.
Do the owners know that you've done it?
No, but I'll have to go and buy a curry and tell them. I'm sure they won't mind. If they do, I'll change the name. It's not out yet, so I can change it.
You could always do it once it's out and just give them a copper, and then.
Well, I work on the assumption that if it ever becomes, if fans ever go and start, a bit like with Ian Rankin, people do the Rebus tours, don't they, in Edinburgh, and they go to all the places that he mentions, and a lot of them are pubs apparently, and he's the landlords are very grateful because it generates quite a lot of trade.
Yeah.
So I figure if I mention restaurants that I like and pubs that I like, and they get a bit of business, well, then that's all good.
Of course it is.
And you never know, I might get a cheeky gin when I go in there. You never know.
You might do, as long as you're not, setting food poisoning stories in the
restaurant. No, it's all good things. All good things.
Then I don't see how they could, how they couldn't just be happy about it. Where are you sat at the moment?
Where am I sat? I have what I call my she shed, which is like a log cabin at the bottom of the garden, which my partner built for me as a writing room. Well, actually, when I first moved over here, it was my therapy room because I wanted somewhere away from the house. And so I used it as that for certain private clients. But then when I started writing full time, it became my writing room. So it's, I'll give you a little tour. So it's.
Wow, it's big.
It's not bad. And it's at the bottom of my garden. And I think he does it just to get rid of me, really, because I spend more time in here than I do at home. So, he's in the house with the dog having a great time, and I'm down here working. But it's a lovely space, and I do love it. And I can leave it a mess and walk out and lock the door. And nobody sees it, so it's all right.
Yeah, my office here where I sit, this stays permanently set up, but there is like a glass door at the side of me, kind of on there. So, yeah. Sorry about the mess, family. Everyone can see it. So somebody has asked, and I'll see if I can find out who the comment is from. Did coming from Bradford influence your storyline choice in Murder Mile, i.e. Yorkshire Ripper?
Not really, if I'm honest.
Noble.
Yeah, I thought that might be Joe. If I'm honest, not intentionally. I'll tell you I was toying with the idea for the Murder Mile for about 7 years. And I was carrying it around with me, and I started writing it and picked it up and put it down and picked it up and put it down. And Jack the Ripper, the original Jack the Ripper of 1888, always fascinated me because as a profiler, he was the one that got away. He was the first documented UK serial killer who was made famous or infamous by the press.
Yeah.
And he's lived in legend because he got away, because it's still an enduring mystery. It's a bit like Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot. Who was it? And as a profiler, it fascinated me because I thought if we encountered the same crime now with the techniques we have now, would we have had a better chance of working out who he was? And I always played this game with myself. I read everything there was to read about Jack the Ripper, the original Jack the Ripper. And I've got a book on my bookshelf. I must have a dozen books that are all about that. And there are about 10 runners and riders who were suspects, who've been put forward as suspects. I mean, it changes every year, and every year somebody will bring out a book with a different suspect in it. And I always went through all the evidence and sort of thought, if I were profiling this, who would I put my money on? Given the evidence that we've got from then, and given the techniques we have now. So I always thought if I created a character, she'd be a behavioral profiler, because that's what I know, forensic profiler. And she's a celebrity forensic profiler. So she writes books, she's on TV, she does TV documentaries. And what if, there is a story as to where the what if came from, but what if a serial killer started replicating the murders of the original Jack the Ripper, and it was like pitching the most notorious one that got away with my forensic profile? Would she be able to work it out? And there have been documentaries since then about the FBI and British police using the computer technology that we have now and the modern profiling techniques they have now to look at the evidence of 1888 and see if they can come up with who they think it was of the runners and riders that are always put forward. And that's where it came from. But because I'd set the book in West Yorkshire, you wouldn't be true to form or realistic if you didn't mention that obviously there was a Yorkshire Ripper. And I didn't want to give him any more celebrity status. And I didn't really want to make it about him, and it wasn't about him. But I think if you're being realistic, if that were to happen, you know, the press and would make much of the fact that in that county, another Ripper, they would draw parallels. So he is mentioned in passing, but it's not about him. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you get on with promotion and marketing? David's asking.
Thankfully, I don't have to do it as so much, because I think it's more of an issue if you're self-publishing, and I really admire anybody who does that, because that is a lot of hard work. And I'm a bit of a technophobe. Well, I'm a lot of a technophobe, as you know, Sam. And when it comes to, you know, social media is a big thing now, particularly for promotion.
Yeah.
And if you've got a publisher, they tend to take most of that on. So they do that. Obviously, I have to do things like, I mean, I enjoy doing things like this, but and interviews and do a little bit on social media, but I don't have to do a lot. And it's not my thing. I'm not a marketeer, really. So thankfully, I don't have to do it so much. I get nice people like Sam to do things like this for me instead.
And I thoroughly enjoy myself. It's kept me sane the last year, and I've made the best friends. It's just been wonderful. It really has. What's the biggest myth or misconception about forensic profiling that really annoys you, says Donna. And she actually put a name at the end. Thank you.
I don't think there are as many myths and misconceptions about forensic profiling as there are about things like forensics, like Kate does. I mean, Kate can give you a list of things that really wind her up. You know, detectives just walking into a crime scene without gloves on or a scene suit and things like that. And she screams at the telly. I think it's not a subject that's been covered that widely. I think the one thing that is a bit of a trope is where the psychologist is always screwed up. I mean, that's not to say I'm not, but it's a bit like Cracker, where they're always an alcoholic. I mean, in Cracker's case, he was a bit of an alcoholic and he had a gambling addiction, and so they always make them quite fractured. And whilst I'm not saying there aren't, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I'm not. Everybody's got their hang-ups, but I think to do the job, you wouldn't survive it if you were an alcoholic or you had, massive psychological problems of your own. And I think the cracks would show far too easily, and you wouldn't be able to function very effectively. But I think it's a bit like the alcoholic cop trope, so I can't think of many, because I've not seen it portrayed very much. Maybe I just don't watch the right programs, but I'm not sure that answers.
Cass says she likes the author chat events. It's a legit way to stalk your favourite and new favourite authors.
You stalk me anytime. I'm fine with that. It's probably better than some of the real stalkers I've had.
Kaz says errors in DNA books make her super annoyed, and Donna was saying that she's a forensic science student, which is why she wondered.
So Donna can probably come up with more things that annoy her than I can. I think I've been so busy doing the job, I've not really encountered it in books and TV. Maybe I think it's becoming a bit more of a popular angle because they're always looking for a different angle to a cop or a different sort of protagonist. So maybe it'll become more of a thing. I know there's a series on at the moment. I can't remember the name of it, where it's about a forensic psychologist or a psychiatrist. So I think the other thing as well is in fiction, psychiatrists, when they're working with their clients, often give too much away about themselves. And I think one of the things that you don't do when you're working with a client is tell them a lot about, especially when you're working with criminals. And Jo will know this from her job, that you don't disclose an awful lot about yourself because they have a lot of time on their hands and it's a dangerous thing to do. So self-disclosure is something you wouldn't do. So when you watch programs where they get involved with their patients, physically or romantically, I think that's quite a no-no. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, it does, but you'd get struck off pretty quick.
Yeah, I should hope so. That's definitely a no-no's understating the seriousness.
That's not to mean people don't try and find out. They do.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Somebody said I can be a protagonist for you. I'm wondering. Don't know.
That's
who
fine.
that is.
Send me your CV.
Oh,
is that Jo? We need to get together, Jo, for a coffee, and I need to come visit the big house when I'm allowed again, because that features quite heavily in book 2 as well. So, but I'm working from memory because it's a long time since I've been there. By that we mean the prison in.
Yeah, it wouldn't have occurred to me that people might not know that the big house.
The big house.
Reference to prison.
Some people don't know where Strangeways is either, because a lot of the prisons have changed their names.
Yeah,
Strangeways is HMP Manchester. Armley, I've talked about Armley in one of my books, and it's HMP Leeds now. It's only the locals call it Armley. So a lot of places change their name.
Strangeways is the only prison that I've ever been actually near, being from Manchester, and it's just kind of
spooky.
Yeah, it's really, and obviously I've only kind of been past it, but it's literally.
You're trying not to say that you've actually ever been in there, aren't you? I can tell. Well, not as a client, anyway.
But I don't know. It's very imposing. Doesn't seem a big enough word for it.
No, it's quite a dominating feature, isn't it?
Yeah, and it just appears. I was
it sort of grows out of the landscape, doesn't it?
Because you know exactly what it is as soon as you see it, but it's very strange. Strangeways has never been called that. It's named after the area, somebody says. Not sure.
See, every day's a school day.
I've only been in Wetherby YOI, though, says Kaz. Oh, Young Offenders.
Young Offenders.
Not
as a client, I hope.
She can't be because she was a teacher. So I wonder if she's ever visited. What have you done for research? What have you been able to do for research?
In the last year of lockdown, not a lot. Most of my research is done online, and I'm terrible. One of the things I'm trying to get myself out of is falling down research rabbit holes while I'm writing.
Okay.
And I'm in two minds about it, to be honest. I've spoken to other authors, Ian Rankin being one of them, who are quite prolific, and they seem to be able to write quite quickly, and I don't write very quickly. And these authors that can churn out easily a book a year, and sometimes 2.
Yeah.
I know authors that I'm in contact with on Twitter who've brought out 3 books in the time that I've done 2, and they say to me that the secret is to just splurge it down on the page, the first draft. Just get it down on the page. It doesn't matter how wrong it is. It doesn't matter if the details are not right. Ian Rankin famously said that in some of his first drafts, he even changes the eye colour of characters or changes their name inadvertently because he just gets it down on paper. But then he says, you can't fix an empty page. So get it down on paper and then go back, and in your second and third drafts, you can clean it up and you can fix it. And writers say to me, when you get to something you need to research, instead of stopping and breaking the flow, just put research this here, and then leave a note for yourself and then go back to it. And I do try and do that, but it often stops me moving forward. For me, a lot of my research might be in an area of psychology. It might be about, because that changes all the time. It's like medicine. It evolves. Every year we learn more. The human mind is about as mysterious to us as the surface of a planet. I mean, we know a little bit about a portion of the brain, but not a lot about all of it. And it's like exploring the deep. So every year research tells us more and more, we learn more. So I have to keep up with that. And it's not the day job now. So quite often I'll be writing, I'll get to a bit and I'll think, I wonder. And I start to research online or in the psychology journals. And I disappear down these rabbit holes and I can lose 2, 3, 4 hours. And then I come out of my she shed here and think, I haven't actually written that many words today, but I can't move on with the next bit, and because it's a building block to what I need to do. So I do try and not get distracted by research, but actually sometimes it informs the book, and sometimes it takes the book in a different direction that it wouldn't have gone in had I not done it. And quite often I'm grateful for the fact that I did explore a little rabbit hole, because I come up with things that I wouldn't have known otherwise and make the book better. So physical research, I don't do a lot. There have been a couple of times, I'm now in the middle of book 3 while I'm trying to edit books 1 and 2. And I have thought I could really do with driving over to Yorkshire and driving to various places, which we've not been allowed to do until now. And so I'm going to be making some trips over the Pennines to go and explore some places and get some inspiration.
Exciting. Very, very exciting. Okay, there was a double execution in public in 1864, David says.
Yeah, I've just written that in book 3. I've set a scene in Armley and said that in the 1800s it was an execution, a place of execution for males and females. It's a male prison now, but people were executed there. There was a hanging cell at Manchester as well, I think. Joel, no, I think so. So yeah, and actually I've been research for an idea for book 4, but I'll keep that one to myself.
Keep it to yourself for now, but I will be minding you about it in the future.
I will keep that secret.
Kazza said she's enjoyed this chat. Leslie's fab. You are fab, but we've only got 5 minutes left.
Oh, where's it gone?
Somebody has written, I will refresh my phone, it's Joe again. There was some research recently where some sculptors were asked to do work in a set time frame. Some did lots, some perfected one. The ones that did lots actually did the best work. It allowed them to change/fail and therefore learn and improve their skills. And it does actually say your name at the end, Joe. I didn't spot that, sorry. Wow. Hanging rooms, B-wing for the males, G-wing for the females.
Yeah. And it's within my lifetime that they executed the very last person in the UK. That's how old I am. So, it is within living memory. My father, one part of his life when I was growing up, was a publican, and he had a pub in Yorkshire. And he actually met Albert Pierpoint, who was the British executioner, because he was a licensed victualler as well, and they met on a licensed victualers do. And my dad told me all about the conversations he'd had with Britain's hangman, which were quite interesting. So it's a gruesome subject, but very intriguing for a crime writer.
Yeah. Would you ever consider writing any of it?
Yes, that's what I'm toying with for book 4. The whole psychology of it intrigues me. See, it all feeds into the psychology of, it's a very divisive subject, capital punishment. Should we have it? It only needs one mistake. There's been a lot of people released from prison after miscarriages of justice, which if there'd have been the death penalty, there'd have been no coming back from that mistake. So there's all that division, but also the psychology of the people who took the job. And around the world, in France they had the guillotine. In America we still have in certain states. the lethal injection and so on, and somebody does the job, and usually it's volunteers. So the whole psychology of that, of how you get your head around that and make peace with that, intrigues me. So yeah, I am looking at that.
Yeah, that it does. It throws a lot of questions up. Definitely.
Back in the day when we had hanging regularly in the UK, they used to ask for volunteers, and it was no pay. And they had a list, they had a queue of people volunteering to pull the lever and do the drop. So that's quite interesting to me.
I can imagine you really getting right in there with this book. I'm looking forward to reading it.
It does intrigue me. It does, especially as my dad, who's now gone, bless him, met Britain's last hangman. So, and he had a kit in a suitcase, did Pierpoint, and he had in their notebooks with calculations of height and weight and drop, and he turned it into a bit of a science. So quite interesting.
I bet he could look at people and know exactly what it would mean.
He could. He used to look through the people. He used to stay in the prison the night before the execution, and he'd visit the cell, and he'd peek through the hole and gauge their height and their weight, and then he'd set the rope for the next morning. So
wow, what a way to end the interview.
There you go. We've run out of time. So much we still could have talked about.
We could stay for another few hours.
I hope I've answered people's questions. I hope they've enjoyed it. But if they come to Harrogate and we chat, we'll sit and chat. We've got all day to do it then, and all night. Chat about all kinds of things.
Profiling me in person. Can you imagine? Give everyone a quick reminder about the Murder Mile and just a final shout to Zaffa.
Yep, so the Murder Mile, which is going to change its cover in the next week or two, is coming out with Zaffa. It's available now on Kindle. It's coming out in paperback into supermarkets and WH Smiths and airports and railway stations when we can use them on the 30th of December this year. The Killing Song is coming out on the 25th of November this year on Kindle, and then 2nd of June next year in paperback. And book 3, which is yet untitled, is coming out on the 15th of December, both in Kindle and paperback. So the Murder Mile is the first one of the series, and they will follow on from there. So if you haven't read it, go and get it now.
Crack on, because it's fantastic.
Yeah, there's a plug, a shameless plug.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who's asked questions.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I thought it might be just me and Sam. I was getting worried we'd be sitting here on our own.
No, never ever. But thank you so much for agreeing to come as well. And you did so at short notice. You stepped in because the lovely Stuart Giles is in South Africa and his internet won't support it.
All right.
So
it's my game, and I'm grateful to do it.